So today let's talk about the 2020 iPad Pro, because these are now the cheapest iPad Pros on Apple's refurbished site, and they have come down in price substantially because they're 4 years old at this point. But are they still worth buying, especially since this lacks an M series chipset? Well, let's talk about it. Beginning with the design, on face value, this basically looks identical to the $1,100 M2 iPad Pro. Since this generation of iPad Pro, there's really been no big change design-wise. It still has the same camera module, the same flat sides, the same bezel size on the front, and so it does mean this iPad has aged very well design-wise and still looks fresh. Only nerds will point out that the M2 models have iPad Pro written on the back instead of just iPad, but literally that's the only visual difference. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Moving on to the display, this is actually where I want to talk about why I have this iPad. You see, I really wanted to try the 12.9 inch size option because for many years I've always used the 10.5 inch and 11 inch models instead. The thing is, because the M1 12.9 inch gained mini LED, that got a major price increase, and so even today, nearly 2 years later, they're still floating around £900 here in the UK, which is a lot for an iPad, and I'm not willing to spend that much because I'm only ever going to use this for content consumption, and so this 2020 model being the last 12.9 inch to just come with LCD means it's considerably cheaper. Specifically, I got this refurbished from Apple for £579, and because it's directly from Apple, it came with a new shell and battery, so this is a much better deal for someone who does not plan to use their iPads as a laptop replacement. Because yes, while this lacks the mini LED technology that might offer some nicer colors and also higher brightness, there's really nothing to complain about with this 12.9 inch 2020 model because the LCD panel's still great. Apple's been making these for years, so there's really nothing to complain about. Yes, the blacks are more greyish and it only offers 600 nits of brightness, but I don't really care. I just want the real estate the 12.9 inch offers, and I have to agree it does make a difference when watching movies. Now I'm not sure if I will hold on to this because the 11 inch, which I have used in the past, is considerably lighter, which makes a difference. And remember, if you are considering the 11 inch, remember that even today the M2 model has the same exact display, so if you don't need the fancy M series chipset, you can get the same great display for much less by settling for this 2020 model. Also, a big thing techies are gonna like here is ProMotion, and while I'm not a huge 120Hz nerd myself, it is nice to have. Now let's touch on the Achilles heel of this iPad, which is the A12Z. Now I say that in quotations because I feel like many dismiss these models because they don't have the M series chipset, but honestly I don't think Apple offers enough software features on those models that justify the upgrade. I feel like those who will benefit from having M1 or M2 on the iPads are using those as laptop replacements, but there is a large majority of consumers who just use their iPads as iPads. It's purely a tablet for consuming content on, or of course checking on social media, so for that purpose you're really not going to benefit much from getting a more expensive iPad. When it comes to regular usage, the A12Z iPad still performs like a champ. It has a similar configuration to M1 with 8 CPU cores and 8 GPU cores, and whilst it does fall under the A12 family of chips, this being the Z variant means it's closer in performance to the A14, which is still a very decent chipset. That's what Apple's using right now with the iPad 10. There's also 6 gigs of RAM here, so it's plenty fine when multitasking, and yeah, I really have no complaints performance-wise. Battery life has also been solid on this iPad. As I said, this directly comes from Apple refurbished, so it came with a brand new battery inside, and so I've easily been getting 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. Now what sucks for those considering buying this used, or from a third-party refurbished seller, is that unfortunately, unlike other Apple products, you can't check the battery health natively on iPads. I'm not sure why, but you have to use a third-party program like Coconut Battery, but still, it would be much easier for those gambling on the used market for this to be baked in settings so that you can easily ask the seller about the battery health. So hopefully Apple does fix that, but either way, because it's a massive iPad and has a massive battery inside, I'm sure battery life should still be solid even if the battery has aged. Accessories wise, this does offer the same keyboard and pencil Apple offers even today with their latest iPads. The Magic Keyboard actually launched with this generation of iPads. It is undoubtedly the keyboard to get for this iPad. The floating design is really nice, and offers the same great keyboard and trackpad experience Apple has offered for years on the Mac. And so yes, if you need it, you can thankfully find it for much cheaper than retail price nowadays, and so I would recommend one. The Apple Pencil also has remained unchanged for 6 years at this point, but to be honest, there's not much to change with this. It's a great accessory for the iPad as is, and if you want to take notes for school or college, or you want to do artwork, this is perfect. Again, much like the keyboard, the price has come down on this, and so please do not buy the inferior USB-C pencil, get this one instead. Camera-wise, these sensors are pretty decent. The rear cameras are actually the exact same ones they use today with the M2 models. It's a 12 megapixel main with a 10 megapixel ultra-wide, accompanied by a LiDAR sensor, which is pretty useless but did debut on this iPad. And I'll be honest, I rarely use the cameras. At most, I'll use the main camera to scan documents, but honestly, I wouldn't care if they downgraded the iPad Pro to one camera on the back because I doubt most are taking photos on a regular basis with their massive iPads. The front-facing camera is of course more important for video calls, and in that aspect, this isn't as great as newer models that do offer center stage, but the sensor itself is a decent resolution, and I can make do with it. You also get 4K video recording if you really need that, and one thing the Pro iPads only have is portrait modes. Because the other iPads lack Face ID, which I'll get to by the way, this has the depth sensing tech for portraits, and it's nifty, but I'm not gonna lie guys, I likely will never use this. And let's actually talk about Face ID because I'm still conflicted about this. Now with the 12.9-inch size, it works very seamlessly and I don't even have to think about unlocking the iPads. As soon as I wake it up, it's ready to go and that's awesome. But with the smaller 11-inch size, I did often find myself blocking the Face ID module, and so I do still kind of prefer Touch ID. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but those are my thoughts. The audio here is very impressive guys. As one expects when you have a large ass iPad that has quad speakers, it makes quite a racket, and the speakers are surprisingly bassy for a product that's this thin. Mics are also very solid. There's actually 5 on this iPad instead of 2 on the other iPad models, and here's a sample for you guys. And here's a video mic test for you guys on this iPad. Let me know how this sounds. A few other smaller things to note. This has USB-C, which is great. It's not a Thunderbolt port, but again, if you do need that, you probably want the M1 because that's more suited as a laptop replacement. But for my needs, which is literally just using the port to charge the bloody thing, the speeds here are completely fine. You also get Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5 support, which are the specs you would come to expect for a relatively modern iPad. And I've had zero issues in this department. You do miss out on 5G, which the M1 got, but I don't care at all about that. In fact, I've actually never bought a cellular iPad because I'll just hotspot off my phone instead. So overall guys, for the price you can find this at nowadays in the US and other countries like here in the UK, I think the 2020 model is still worth purchasing today. In fact, if you're willing to gamble on the used market, you could even consider the 2018 model that's very similar, but I would get this for the longer support. Yes, the A12Z only has one extra GPU core over the A12X, but it did launch 2 years later, so I do think there's 3 to 4 years left of support, compared to 1 or 2 years of support left on the 2018. Remember, the 2020 model also came with 6 gigs of RAM as standard, compared to 4 gigs on the 2018, and so that could help it get additional iPadOS updates. So yes, overall guys, this is still worth buying, and it's a great buy even today. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.